Today I want to talk about the new head coach of the Chicago Bulls and a little bit about Deion Sanders, and all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. We also do the live shows on Mondays and Wednesdays at 3 o'clock Tulsa time. And if you leave a 5-star review and you want to leave a question or just say something nice, I will read it on the live show. I look forward to those. Like, I got a question on the Monday show about whether or not Mike Gundy would have been a great fit at Tennessee and if Tennessee's fortunes would have changed. Check out the podcast and you can hear my answer. Now, as this segment goes, I was sitting here thinking a little too hard about Deion Sanders and Jackson State and wondering whether or not I needed to do a segment about this because I also understand that it's an HBCU school that doesn't really have a large following. But I like HBCU schools, and we all tend to like Deion Sanders. And the thing about Deion Sanders to Jackson State that bothers me is how Deion Sanders has already made it more about him arriving at Jackson State than what Jackson State is going to become. This is a place that has a proud football tradition. My favorite statistic about Jackson State Tigers is that in 1968, they had 11 players drafted into the NFL off of one football team. That's how good Jackson State was. Many of you would probably know, maybe you don't, that Walter Payton also went to Jackson State, and many believe that he's the greatest tailback who ever lived, and he certainly has an award named after him for being the best person in the NFL. Reading sweetness, you can come to some matter of dispute about that. But Deion Sanders getting to Jackson State after they just let go a guy who went 4-8 is already enthusiastic for some, or inspiring to some, or it's enthused some energy into the Jackson State football program. He's also operating like only prime time could operate in that he's already offered a 5-star defensive tackle in Mason Smith out of Louisiana. Many of us believe that Mason Smith is either going to LSU or Georgia. We'll see how that goes. I don't think that a 5-star defensive tackle is going to commit to play at an FCS school. However, anything can happen, and Corey Foreman put Howard on his top 7 list. So there is some momentum here, and Deion said he felt called by God to go to Jackson State. But the timing of all of this is really interesting because Deion was making about $2 million to be an analyst for NFL Network, and when they wanted to cut his deal in half to make him, just a lowly paid 7-figure analyst, he decided to walk. And in deciding to walk, one of the first people that he reached out to was Barstool. And Barstool CEO said, I got a text introducing me to Deion Sanders. You respond to the text. This wasn't a strategy. This is just serendipitous. We're going to make it work. So Deion Sanders has 21st in Prime as a podcast for Barstool that he had been doing since August. And now, less than or just a little after a month into his deal at Barstool, he and others refuted that he had been hired by Jackson State, called HBCU sports bald-faced liars about the hiring, and then the president and the athletic director joined Deion Sanders on his Barstool podcast to say he'd been named and hired the new head coach at Jackson State. And then today he dropped a video asking for someone to join Barstool's Viceroy program. This is the internship for Barstool, in which they assign you a Twitter account based on which one you want to follow. I've interacted with these accounts, and in many cases, they are run by people that aren't usually going to that school or haven't been going to that school for some time, and they continue the Barstool brand of irreverence and, in some ways, misogyny. I also found it interesting that Barstool has been linked with racist comments, and Deion Sanders still wanted to do business with them, and his agent said to the New York Post that they never actually asked the question about whether or not, the racist comments have any bearing on what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. So in knowing that that's how that's going to go for Deion Sanders at Jackson State, and then seeing him invite somebody to bring them a Twitter account, I went and looked at HBCU Barstool accounts, and I found two. Prairie View and A&M has 60 followers and hasn't tweeted in 15 months. And the Texas Southern Barstool account is looking for somebody to take it over because this has just not been a group of people that Barstool has really made a habit of trying to market toward. And in not being able to market toward them, you're going to have a hard time now. So with Deion Sanders taking this job and then making it about Barstool, I have some reservations about how that could go. Now, as to Billy Donovan and the Chicago Bulls job, it's interesting because Billy Donovan didn't want to take over a gig where he had to do some rebuilding. And while they are a little bit further along in their rebuilding than we might expect for like in Oklahoma City, it's still curious, right? But you have pieces. You got Kobe White, who's a superstar, and you got to make some movement on Zach LaVine, and you have the number 4 overall pick in the November 18th NBA draft. And I think if James Wiseman is there, you take James Wiseman. But it's certainly a rebuilding job for Billy Donovan. And now knowing that Arturas Carcinovas is the GM, and this is his first year, perhaps being able to pair each other is going to, help them feel better about what's to come. I don't know exactly if this is going to work for Billy. I know that being a 2-time national champion head coach at Florida feels like the move. He did make 5 straight playoff appearances with the Oklahoma City Thunder. With the caveat, of course, he had Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony, and Paul George all at one time or another. And in this past year, he got Chris Paul, in which we saw he and Paul pull together to make an outstanding run into the bubble playoffs for Oklahoma City and really just falling a couple shots short here and there. They were outstanding in the clutch. So perhaps some of that just wears over on to Chicago, and we're able to talk well about Chicago, and I understand it. All right, that's it for me.